Today's guest is Ambika Wauters, who is well known in the homeopathic community for her amazing work with the colour remedies, and I absolutely loved hearing her story of how she came to make them. But there is so much more to this amazing woman, which we will start to delve into today. Ambika is also an artist and has written many books on various topics, as well as creating beautiful oracle cards, so be sure to check out her website for more information on this, as well as her upcoming courses on manifestation, awakening the divine feminine, and how to create illumination remedies. And just a heads up, her next Awaken the Divine Feminine class is starting Sunday, June 23rd at 12 noon Pacific time. So you've got a month to register if you are listening to this podcast on the day it comes out. So be sure to check out her website for more information and for upcoming courses at www.lifeenergymedicine.com. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangout. Today, we get to speak with the lovely Ambika Wauters. Welcome to the podcast, Ambika.
Thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show.
It's lovely. It's hard for me to say Waters because I just want to say Wouters.
So I know.
Yeah, but
they don't do vouchers. They just do waters.
Yeah, water.
Yeah, waters.
Let's see. I actually was in Canada for a little bit, and I had to, because we say water, and I had to really open my mouth and say water. It was you kind of
water with that big strong R is so North American. It is.
It is. I have some beautiful homeopathic friends who are all huge fangirls of yours and who know much more about your work. I've had your name pop across my path so many times. And recently I wanted to prescribe a color remedy for a client. And as I ordered it, your name was in brackets on the pharmacy's list of remedies. And I was like, okay, that's it. I've had enough. I have to talk to this woman because everybody sings your praises and I just have so much love and respect for the work that you do. So even though your names come across my path, I haven't had the opportunity to delve deeply into your work. But since I have had a little look, I am just so excited for us to chat today. But maybe, because I don't even know where to start because there's so many questions I want to ask you, but maybe if you can tell our listeners about your journey of how you came to homeopathy.
Well, you and I were talking about Africa, and I was in Zaire, which was Belgian Congo in the ancient days. And I had two boxer dogs. One got these huge cysts in his ears and eczema all over his chest. And I knew enough about healing to try and change his diet. And it just went on for a long time. And he was very irritable, very cranky, and nothing was working. And to get medication of any kind, whether it's allopathic or homeopathic, in the center of Africa was no mean feat. So one day I was at the golf course, just sitting there having a beer and French fries like the Belgians love to do. And I was introduced to a young vet who was seconded to the African army. He was Belgian. And I said, what do you do? He said, I do homeopathy on animals. And I said, really? I said, would you like to come over and meet my boxers? And he said, sure, I'd love to. So he came over and he started asking these very strange questions, like, does your dog pass gas? You know, it's like, of course. It's like, of course, this is a boxer. Anyway, he was delightful. And he gave me these 3 little pills. And he said, 1 a week for 3 weeks. And I thought, is he crazy? 3 weeks later, this irritable dog whose chest was like just crusty with blood, and he was just so uncomfortable. His chest was like a baby's bottom, and his whole nature changed. His whole demeanor was just kind and attentive, and he just became a wonderful dog. And I said, what is this? What is this medicine? And that was the beginning. And when we went to Belgium on holiday, I went to Brussels and I saw a homeopath. And then a few years later, when we left Africa, I was living in Spain. I really needed treatment. I had taken a really insidious medication as an anti-malarial, and I wound up hemorrhaging. It was just not pretty, and I didn't know what to do. I found an acupuncturist because I had had that treatment before, and he was able to stop the acute, but the chronic went on. And then, you know how it happens by chance, I went to London with a girlfriend, and I was at a dinner party, And I was sitting next to this man who had this incredible energy field. It was just pulsating. It was with goodness. And it was, again, I turned to him and I said, "Who are you and what do you do?" He said, "I'm a homeopath." And he was from South Africa. So he knew about the malarial medications. He was not ignorant at all about what I had taken. Went to see him. And again, just this fantastic treatment. First, the dog had responded, and then I responded to it beautifully. And when the time came, I knew it's what I wanted to do. Went to London. I went to the Regent's College interview, and this man said, "How many people do you know in this country?" And I said, "2." And he said, "That's enough." And that was the beginning. That was the beginning. And again, happenstance, I lived next to Ian Watson, who is
No way. Oh,
it's like all the way up in the Lake District. And he became my first homeopath. And he started a wonderful tutorial. Once, I think we met like once a week, and he was saying, "You could make remedies out of anything." And I said, "Well, can you make them out of color?" And he said, "Color?" Just like, "What are you talking about, lady?" I'd been in homeopathic college for like 2 months. I did not know anything. And he said, "Why don't you do it?" So that was the beginning. I started to read Hahnemann on provings. And then his wife at the time showed me a couple of articles by Nuala Icing, who is an Irish homeopath. And she had had these dreams about granite. Granite was the first one, and I believe butterfly, but I'm not sure. I remember reading the one about granite, and then I started having lucid dreams on how to make these remedies. I got theatrical gels. I got pure water. I got beakers. I put them on a mirror so that the light would reflect the color back into the water. And then Ian came over and showed me how to potentize. I hadn't a clue. And then we started giving them to people like, "Hi, would you like to take a color remedy?" Sure, sure. It's amazing how many people said yes. But I lived very close to the largest Manjushri Buddhist community in the West. And I went to the monastery and I asked if I could talk to some of the monks and nuns, if they would be interested in taking one of the color remedies, because they ate the same food, they drank the same water, they had the same daily practice. Their environment was absolutely the same. There were very few variables except for their own individual response. So 6 people volunteered, and one of them was a little nun. And I say little, she was about 5'2", but she was very portly. And she suffered from rheumatoid arthritis badly. And that, the weather in England is horrible. So she was always affected by the damp and the cold. And this monastery was an old, like 17th century castle, and everything was cold and damp and dank. So I gave all of them the same color, which was indigo blue. And she broke out in boils from her head to her feet, right down the liver meridian. It was so uniform, but she was out of pain for the first time in many, many years. And she loved those remedies. She was the first to show me that, yes, color could heal. And then there was a young boy. I say young, he was about 19 or 20, and he had a lot of fear. He was studying to be a monk, a Buddhist monk, and he had a lot of fear of women. Well, I said, "Well, like what kind of fear?" When I took the case, "What kind of fear?" He said, "Well, the guys here, they like to jump over the cliffs into the Irish Sea." He said, "I won't do it. It scares me to death." So I gave him the indigo blue and I left, came back a week later. And and how did you do on the proving? Although they wrote things down, I wanted to take the case. And he said, "I tell you, it was amazing. 5 women fell in love with me." And I said, "Oh, come on." He said, "Really? I'm not kidding." And I jumped into the sea. I mean, these were cliffs, high cliffs. I was really astounded by his response. What was interesting is that he gave up his practice of being a novice, went down to London, got a job, met a girl, got married, had 3 kids. I saw him 9 years later, right before I left. I was at some conference and he was there. Ian Watson was there. I hadn't seen him in a long time. And all of a sudden it was like reunion. And this young boy who became a man said, "Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The remedy got rid of my fear and it allowed me to live a life and not hide." So but I still didn't know enough homeopathy. I still had to go and complete an entire course. It took me 7 years to do a 4-year course. I had to get the funds, just the whole thing. It took me a very long time, which was really a good thing for me and for my development. And at the end of 7.5 years, nobody believed that color could heal. So I threw 7.5 years into a bin and just said, okay. Then I got a call from Jan Schulten. And he says, "We hear you're working with color." I said, "Well, I was." And he said, "I'm coming to London to do my first conference. Would you like to meet me?" I said, I'd love to meet you. So I went down to London and we talked. And I didn't tell him on the phone that I'd thrown everything in the bin, but I did when I met him. And he said, "Well, do it again." This was nearly 8 years of my life. To do it again and get out of your own way, young lady. He said, "Get out of your way." He said, "You find somebody to do this for you. Get out of your own way." And I was stunned. I found 3 female homeopaths who were more than happy to share the remedies with their clientele and get provings. And one was that great proving in the book of the woman who was incontinent with her bowels and was going to have a colostomy within days. They gave her red 30C. No, yes, it was a 30C. And she got control of her bowels and never needed surgery. And to my knowledge, never has had it. That was like extraordinary. These gals got more information in a month than I got in all that time because I was in my own way. I don't know how to put it. I was in my own way. And then eventually I came back to America and started the Institute of Life Energy Medicine and was teaching the color remedies and decided it was time to make the sound remedies. So in 2005, 2006, I was up in the mountains of New Mexico. I don't know if you know the States, but New Mexico is truly beautiful. It's like your Drakensberg down in South Africa. It's very beautiful. And I had a crystal bowl and pure water and some tuning forks, and I started making the sound remedies, sent them off to Helios. And for many years, they stayed at a 6X, only because I was not ready to take them any higher. The sound remedies are even stronger than the color remedies. The color remedies work on the etheric body. We have the physical body, the etheric body where the chakras are, and the color remedies work in the etheric. But the sound remedies work on the astral, which is the aversion and desires of how we ask, what do you like? What do you dislike? Aversions and desires are an aspect of the astral body. So it took a long time before I was ready to put those out. And then eventually I found a publisher who said, yeah, I'll publish. I had the color book out and she said, well, let's just combine it into color and sound. And out it went to the world. And then I've been working in what I call the illumination remedies ever since. The solfeggio sounds, holy waters from around the world, potentized, the archangels, the angels of the 12 holy nights of Christmas. I just keep going. But I started a class 2 years ago and was blessed to have homeopaths from all over, from New Zealand, from Italy, from North America. And they all wanted to do what I call intentional remedies. And we just had an article published in Clever H, the online homeopathic journal, which has just come out. And I am so proud of what they created. I showed them how to do an intentional remedy. And we talked about, some of them had very grandiose ideas like galactic consciousness. I don't know how you'd make a remedy out of galactic consciousness. I'm sure you can, because what I learned was you can make a remedy out of anything. We have a wonderful homeopath named Jo Douglas, who's down in New Zealand. She runs Bethlehem Homeopathics, I'm sorry, I don't quite have the name at hand, but she's an astrologer. And when we were talking before she joined the class, she said, I'm very interested in how the new moon affects people. And I said, well, try it. You have nothing to lose. It will either work or it won't. She made a remedy called New Beginnings, which was in the sign, new moon in Cancer, in the sign of Cancer. And it's turned out to be one of the most extraordinary remedies. And I've given it to many, many people. You know, we are in this time of flux and change now. We are really having to let go of the past and step into this new paradigm, and New Beginnings is a gift. And I've given it to a couple of young people who were going into their Christ consciousness age of 33, new beginnings, you know, out of childhood into adulthood. I gave it to a man who was struggling to keep his homeopathic business going. I mean, really struggling. He had lost millions. He was a manufacturer. He had lost millions in a strange story, which I'm not at liberty to talk about, but I gave him New Beginnings and he said it helped him beyond measure. So if she can make a remedy out of new moon in Cancer and the sign of Cancer, I guess we could do galactic consciousness if somebody wanted to take it on. But the remedies were just beautiful. We have a homeopath in Rome who knew of a church that was predated Christianity, and the church was built around a well of sacred water. And now it's called Madonna del Pozzo. And her name is Esther Boros. She is a stunning homeopath, studied with a lot of the English homeopaths. She made a remedy out of this holy water that was beyond beautiful. She sent it. We had to send everything to the post, you know, all of us doing provings in different places. It took 7 weeks from New Zealand to get New Beginnings. And Esther's remedy was about 3 weeks in the coming. But I didn't know it was arriving, but I felt like there was something at the front door. There was some kind of energy at my front door. I went to the front door and there was the package from her. And it was very exciting. So we started proving that. We had wonderful results. Gave it to a woman, 65-year-old woman who had vaginal bleeding, postmenopausal, and was having to face hysterectomy. And I asked her, somebody I knew quite well, I asked her, would you be willing to take this remedy? It's very powerful. And she said, yes. So she took it and the bleeding stopped. She took 2 doses in 3 days. And the bleeding stopped and she didn't have to have the operation. I mean, give me that kind of work. And now I'm using it in my clinical practice. I'm using all of them in my clinical practice. We have a wonderful homeopath named Jan Yamamoto Oldfell, who is a PhD pharmacologist. Rare to get that combination. Rare.
Actually, as you're talking, I'm just like, there's so many of these people I want to interview for the podcast, so I'll have to chat with you afterwards for all these names.
These gals they're marvelous. There are 6 of us. Jan was very interested in sound remedies, and she made remedies from whales and dolphins. But what she proved in the class were the qigong sounds for the organs. And now she's put them all together in a remedy called 5 Elements, which is beautiful. Elegant remedy. Just going through the whole thing started with one of my students named Judy Freeler, who lives up in Minnesota in the cold. She runs a farm. She and her husband are farmers up in the cold. And many years ago, like 5 to 7 years ago, I can't pinpoint the date, she asked me, could I make a remedy out of a prayer? And I said, well, I don't see why not. It's just a vibration. So she had this very beautiful prayer. We call it the healing prayer. I'm going to read you just the beginning of it. Lord, look upon me with the eyes of your mercy, and may your healing hand rest upon me. May your life-giving powers flow into every cell of my body and into the depths of my soul, cleansing, purifying, restoring me to wholeness and strength for service in your kingdom. Goes on. It's a very beautiful prayer. And I was taking that remedy after she made it. I was taking it every day before I worked with a client. I have it. The reason I can read it is it's scotch taped onto my computer. And that was the beginning of realizing that all intention, all positive intention can be made into a remedy. Prayers can be turned into remedies. Intentions for goodness of all kind can be turned into remedies. And that's what this class is proving. We have one other student whose name is Dana Smoker, a homeopath and a naturopath, who lives on a very large parcel of land that's been in her family for a long time, for generations. And there's a tree that grows there, and it grows kind of parallel to the earth. It's called the Three Wishes tree, the wishing tree. And when she joined the class, I said, why don't you make a remedy out of that? Because this was originally Native American land that she lived on and probably used in ceremony. And wherever people pray on land, it is sacred. It is definitely sacred land. And you have that in your country too. So she made a remedy called Three Wishes, which has brought in all this elemental energy of the earth itself, of Pachamama and this tree, and wishing what you wish to manifest. It's beautiful. I mean, we are so blessed. This class kind of came together, and now we're so bonded. We feel like sisters. I made a remedy called Trust. And the funny thing is, when I sent it to people, especially the gals in New Zealand and Italy, it took forever. It took forever to get to them. And I said, because we had dates for proving, we were all going to prove the remedy. I use auspicious dates for provings. I use the liturgical calendar for the Catholic Church, for Judaism, for Islam. I use eclipses. I use full moons. I use new moons, but I like auspicious dates. So the remedies hadn't arrived. And I said, well, girls, you're going to have to trust. we did paper remedies, and they worked just fine, but they learned about trust, which was kind of magnificent in itself. So we're moving into another level of not trying to figure out if it works. We know it works. We know this works. And it works to lift the spirit. Yes, we're getting some pathology. We're beginning to look and see, how does this work? How would we use these remedies? What are the themes of these remedies? We had one gal who did Mount Shasta, which is considered the root chakra for the planet, but she hasn't been able to continue in the class, and we're hopeful that she'll come back. But I'm looking for people who want to play in the realm of spirit with our wonderful medicine, because these are adjunct remedies to any deep acting remedy. They will not antidote anything. They just lift the spirit, and they allow and I believe when the spirit is open, grace happens and healing happens. That's what I found with the color remedies. You know, you're talking about Peter Fontaine and autism. The autistic children who used the color remedies had so much healing from them because it didn't disturb their vital force. It just went in, they could just assimilate it. That's where I learned a lot about how the color remedies worked. It was from the mothers of autistic kids. So I love doing this. I still do. I still have a practice, and I don't use these remedies all the time, but more and more I find that deep acting chronic conditions, there's so much pain, there's so much trauma that is so engrafted to the being that these remedies, these spiritual remedies, they lift, they open, and they allow goodness to flow in. And who doesn't want that? And meanwhile, the deep acting remedies are doing what they do. You know, I've used plum balm and color remedies in the same case. I mean, I'm not just in the land of woo-woo. I would like to say that. So any questions?
Oh, yes. Well, as you're talking, I'm just thinking that last year, and this is actually funny. So I had this boy with quite severe autism. He's 13 years old. And the mum was telling me that all he does all day long is listen to the music of Coldplay over and over and over and over. And coincidentally or not, of course it's not, I also happened to interview Matt Pepper at the time, who happened to be friends with Chris Martin, as it would turn out, the lead singer of Coldplay. And I said to him, I am going to make a remedy out of the music of Coldplay. And
Good
then
girl.
to this boy. But
Good girl.
I felt really
stupid doing it. Like I just, just like all my insecurities, all my doubts, everything just came in. So I didn't really want to tell anybody about it. But my really good friend, Denitsa Appeline-Matic, who I don't know if you've met her in person yet, but the two of you will get along like a house on fire because she also makes these intentional remedies with archangels, and she made the golden spiral remedy and just all these unbelievably powerful remedies that she calls the blueprint essences. So
we emailed each other. We have emailed.
Oh my gosh, you two would just get along so well. So I said to her, I want to make this remedy, but I'm really worried. I'm self-conscious. I just don't have the confidence to do it myself. Will you do it with me? So we met up. Now she makes her remedies in a very special way. She writes it on paper. She's got this beautiful station that she set up. It's charged with crystals and with plants around it that was grown using the golden spiral remedy. She's got the most beautiful intention setting that she makes these remedies with. Whereas I Googled the top 20 songs of Coldplay and I put it on a playlist, and then I played it into alcohol, and then we triturated it via Zoom. So she made it her way, I made it my way. And the first two or three triturations we did via Zoom, and the rest I did myself. So I made this remedy, and then I gave it to a few people. For me, the remedy was amazing. I mean, I'm quite a happy, positive person anyway, but I felt it just made me it made me really playful. So this one night about 3 a.m., my husband went to the bathroom, and I actually woke up, and I don't normally, but I just got up out of bed, head round the corner, and when he came past on the way back from the toilet, I pinched his bum. And I was like, I would never normally do that. Like, he's a really playful, funny person, but I'm more serious. And I'm like, what is going on with me? And he even commented, he's like, you're so much more fun. And then it came to the point of having to write up the remedy and kind of put it out there. And because I gave it to a few clients, and I said, is it okay if I give you this remedy? I'm not going to tell you what it is. Also because I was self-conscious, like, oh, I don't want to tell you what it is. Can you just take this? And they're like, yeah, of course. And a couple of them did give me feedback that they felt really playful and happy. But it was also over the Christmas time, just recent Christmas, that I gave it to them. So then I was doubting myself. Is it just because it's Christmas and they're with family that they're happy? So there's too much of the mind that came into it. But now that you're talking about this, I'm like, I need to just get more of it out there. So I appreciate the gift you've given me today. I was just thinking, okay, get out of my own way and just get the remedy out.
Yes, thank you, Jan Schulten. Get out of your own way and give it to this child who listens to that music and see what happens. Because, when I started in autism, it was 1 in 125. I started in the UK working with children who were wards of the state, and they were in very acute situations. And then when I went to America, came back here, they kept finding me. And then I started a program here in Tucson where I live. We had every healing modality you could think of. We had vision therapy. We had gluten-free food, beautiful food, and homeopathy and neural integration. I mean, it was a beautiful program. And we got a lot of children moving forward, really moving forward. We used the color remedies. They were given 1 year of homeopathic treatment free if they were in the program, as long as they kept to the diet. Gluten-free, the GAPS diet was what we were using, and it's really a very hard diet for anybody to follow. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do, was to give up the sugar and the dairy and the wheat and the coffee and the alcohol, and asking children to give that up, who, especially the dairy, which is so soothing to the raw mucous membranes. These kids did it, and we got tremendous healing in this program. It was just hard to keep the program up, and trying to raise money was just not my thing. But I saw some miracles happen with the autistic community. But now the stat here in the States went from 125 down to 54, 1 in 54. It's horrible. And it's just horrible. And they keep at it with the vaccines. They keep at it in total denial. Where I live, there's an Air Force base not far from here. I used to teach classes to parents of autistic kids on just ways they could soothe. Their stat is 5 times higher than the national average for autism, because those men who are sent wherever they're sent, overseas or into war zones, they are so heavily vaxxed. And then, the kids are a mess. I met one woman with 5 autistic children. mean, I don't know how you cope. But so the military has very, very high levels. To find the statistics is, everything is very different since COVID. It's very hard to get proper information. It's hard to do research. Yesterday I was doing research on Flonase, which is this thing you spray up your nose to stop your nose from dripping. I mean, I couldn't find what was in the product. I couldn't find it. I mean, it took me half an hour, 40 minutes, and I dug and I dug and I dug. Finally, I found something that gave me the components. Like, are you joking? That should be on the box, So information is a challenge these days. But I think that the autistic community, they would be very responsive to Coldplay, your Remedy Coldplay, and any other songs that you feel would open that spirit up. I think that's pretty beautiful. Really. I mean, I worked for 4 straight years in autism with nothing else. And I saw miracles. I did. I saw what would happen when you had a committed mother who was willing to, go the distance with gluten-free food and homeopathy, acupuncture. The neural reflex work was positively brilliant work, vision therapy. But I don't do that work anymore. I was burning out on it, and I made a big change and have turned it over to the young. That's all I can say. But I hope you'll get your remedies out there.
I will do. The diet with children with autism is so unbelievably hard because you really need such a committed parent, because all they want to have is gluten quite often and, all the white foods. But these parents are just troopers who really commit. The other thing, and it's just the technology with children with autism. Like this particular boy I was talking about before, he is latched onto technology. I mean, he came into the clinic and he had a portable Wi-Fi modem on his lap with his iPad in one hand and the cell phone in the other hand. I'm like, how can you heal somebody like that when that is just breaking down his energetic field in such a massive way on his body? I mean, that portable Wi-Fi modem was on his genital area. It was sitting there while he's holding these other two in his hand. It's very hard, very, very hard to get breakthroughs.
But it also tells you his desire to communicate. That's what I get from that somebody is telling you, I want to communicate and I will do what it takes and I'll do what I know. I've recently run up against 5G and Wi-Fi and very close to where I live. And I'm beginning to find a lot of very good resources. And one of them is Source Medicine, Peter Chaffell's wonderful, wonderful program. And they have a lot of things about Wi-Fi radiation. And if you can get your client to get onto Source Medicine or send them the link to radiation and Wi-Fi, it can be played over and over and over and over and over again. They have 2 things for Wi-Fi and radiation. And I've started using that myself. I made a remedy along with my colleague, Yamamoto Otfel, who I've spoke about with the dolphins and the Qigong sounds. We put together a fantastic formula that I don't want to ingest, but I spray throughout my home and in my office. And it has wonderful, wonderful components to it. Send me an email. I'll send you the formula because it really is a beautiful formula. She's very, very talented.
That would be amazing. I was actually going to ask you about Peter Chaffell and just more about intentional remedies, and because you also teach people how to make these remedies and you have courses on this.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, because we've had Harry van der Zee on the podcast, and sadly Peter passed this year, just a few months ago. Yeah, so his remedies, I mean, and it sounds like, you're probably aware of the Narayani remedies as well, Swami Narayani. And that was the first time I kind of thought, because there was remedies like removal of entities. And I'm like, well, how do you even make that? And that's when I think Amisha said she would go into a room and there would be chanting and stuff and she'd come out and there's a new remedy. I'm like, okay, so clearly there's remedies being made with this intention. And then Harry van der Zee talked about Peter Chappell asking the universe for the cure for AIDS in this bottle.
Right. And he got it.
Sound Remedies. And then you're doing this and Danetza's doing that. And so there's this whole incredible, new area that's opening up that really makes you question, what is homeopathy? Like there's no
homeopathy in itself homeopathy is Ian Watson once said it in the beginning. He said, it's the medicine of our time. And resonance and vibrational fields are what we're dealing with all the time. I know that there are classical homeopaths, and I am a trained classical homeopath who stepped out of the box, gladly stepped out of the box. I was tired of double-blind studies of bryonia. It's like, really? There must be 100 of those out there. It takes a willingness to experiment with it. You don't know if something's going to work or it's not. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it works, go with it and get out of your own way. That's really the motto. And try it. Ask people. I say to my husband, would you like to try a remedy? Because I'm not again. I said, yeah, I need to know. Do you feel anything? Well, my girlfriends, my relatives. I mean, I was so lucky in the beginning to have that Buddhist monastery at my doorstep. That was fantastic. But now we have this small, very elegant community of homeopaths. Turns out they're homeopaths. It wasn't designed, anybody could sign up for that class, but they're homeopaths. So they understand the process of dilution. The thing is, like with Joe Douglas down in New Zealand, we had no idea if new moon in Cancer and the sign of Cancer was going to do anything. How do you get it? You hold something up to the cosmos and say, please, I don't know if you know this story. Melissa Aslan told me this story many, many, many years ago. I had just made the first batch of homeopathic color remedies in 1990, and she got very interested and invited me down to London. She told me this story about Greenham Common. Do you know what Greenham Common was? Greenham Common was a facility owned by the Ministry of Defense in Britain, where they tested experimental devices. And this group of women started protesting by marching across the gate in a circle with placards, marching. They did it for a long time, 2 or 3 years before they started to get sick. They started to get very ill with things that you couldn't diagnose. And one of the women, and I don't know who she was, if somebody knows her name, please let me know. One woman was a homeopath, and she said whoever the Ministry of Defense, they were emitting some form of radiation, and these women were really getting ill. So this woman, homeopath, took a little vial and held it up to the gate, and they turned it into a remedy, and they all took it. And that was the end of illness at Greenham Common. One other thing, the reason she told me this was they all felt that they needed to wear indigo blue. So they got these capes, indigo blue capes, and they would wrap themselves in these blue blankets. And they felt that that protected them, which is part of what indigo blue does in the color proving. So that's a powerful story about intention and being able to take poison and turn it into a remedy. Isn't that what we do? That's who we are. That's what we do. You can do that with I've got one of 5G. I've got one of Wi-Fi. I've, put them together. They're part of a remedy. What's really important is that we understand it isn't just the physical poison like a lachesis or Bothrobs. It's even negative ideas, I guess. I haven't done anything with the dark side, and I have no intention of doing that. I'd like to say that, but I think about the proving of diamond, that turned out to be one of the great remedies for deeply suicidally depressive people. We need to be able to take our minds and expand our thinking to what we are thinking. First of all, what are we thinking? To our thoughts. What do we want to transform? How would we transform this? We took our whole class took classes with Dr. Joe Rosenberg down in New Zealand. We wanted to know the Fibonacci because that lends itself very beautifully to these intentional remedies, just beautifully.
I was going to ask you that. When you said about the colors, I was going to ask if you've ever done it in a Fibonacci homochord, maybe even. Although I know, actually, funny enough, Dr. Joe doesn't really like the homochords. I'll tell you the story after you finish yours first.
No, go ahead. I want to hear your story.
No, but don't forget your story, though. Peter Berryman, who has really popularized the Fibonacci homochords, and Dr. Joe. The three of us were at the conference in November here in Australia, and the three of us are standing together chatting, and I said to Dr. Joe, so what do you think of Peter using your remedies in a homochord? And Dr. Joe wasn't actually a big fan of it, but which just really blew my mind that homeopaths are doing such amazing work, like putting the work out there, and other homeopaths are using it in their own ways. And, it's just, I love it. It's just so cool. So
I do too. And I also think if your intention is good, it's going to work. It's going to work. I love the realm of sound. And I think what you did with that Coldplay music is brilliant, really. But think about a symphony. I once thought I'd like to do remedies of a whole symphony orchestra. The drums and the violins and the cellos and the horns. And I thought, wouldn't that be fantastic? And I thought, I don't know how I'd do that. It would take me 10 years. But I sometimes get those ideas like that. The sounds are something. And the human voice is also, makes a beautiful remedy. We're just going to be exploring.
That's a problem though. Like once you start with this, you want to turn everything into a remedy. But also I was going to ask you about how long you would hold a remedy up to something like 5G or whatever. But I'm sure you probably cover this in your course.
I work with a pendulum.
So I work with Veda Austin. After having Veda Austin on the podcast, I have to say that I feel a little bit better now about like making these remedies, because she only holds, she'll have the water over image for something like 30 seconds. It's not even very long. And so where I would think you'd have to hold the remedy up overnight or something like that, maybe tape it to something. But actually water is so intelligent. It really only needs to be exposed to the image. And would you do water?
It only needs to be exposed to the thought. The thought in water. But I muscle test everything. How long? When I made the first gem elixirs, it was, I'm just going to show you with my finger. This is no, this is yes, this holds. No, doesn't hold. But I work with a pendulum. So I'll test everything. And I found in the gem elixirs, like some needed to be in the water for 20 minutes and some needed to be in the water for 20 days. Some needed to be in the water for a month. I mean, it was just amazing. I made about 30 gem elixirs, and every one was completely unique. So I just followed the guidance. And that's what Peter Chappell did. You follow the guidance. And it takes a willingness to tune into your guidance, to the wise guidance of your soul. What am I doing here? Who is this for? What do I need to do? I mean, nothing was, yes, they were intentional once the idea was solidified in my mind. But I credit Spirit with just blessing me with the idea itself. I'm not smart enough to make color remedies. I remember after they were first made, I took them down. Well, I made them with Ian Watson, and then I took him down to Helios, to John Morgan. And he was just so gracious. He was so gracious. He said, this is the medicine of our future in homeopathy. And he just took these up. They went 3, 6, 9, 12, 18, 24, 30. I didn't want them higher than 30. They're not meant to, Imponderables are not meant to go beyond a 30. And it was, I think being in Helios's pharmacy, the energy there is just stellar. It's stellar. It's beautiful. It's refined. It's so clean and purified. And their intention to bring healing to people is noble. There's no other word for it. And that's why they've endured for so, so long. They are really extraordinary. But it did something for me. It gave me confidence that I was on the right track. And after I got those remedies, when Helios sent them back, I opened the box and I just started to cry. And it wasn't it wasn't grief. It was just this, I was just overwhelmed with the energy of these colors. They were, and they still are, so precious, so beautiful. And that's how I feel about all the intentional remedies. I call them the illumination remedies. And they may not be for everybody, but for those who are willing to open their hearts to them, they will take you to another space, sometimes very, very quickly. like that. And then it's over. Sometimes you get stuck like the thing with Coldplay, like, I'm not really sure this is right. You take a remedy and bam, you're over that and you're running forward. And sometimes that's how these remedies work, very quickly. And other times they take their sweet time. What I did was I can take things up to 6x and that's it. But I had to take my remedy up to a 30C, and then I had to take it up to a 34x, what we were using for the Fibonacci. So I cut 2 hours out of my schedule. I sat down at my desk and I just did it. And I thought, this is really nice. And by the time I got to 34x, I was in heaven. I was feeling no pain. I thought, this is amazing. This is amazing to be part of this process of potentization. Wow. It was elegant. And that I get it. And then I take it to the students and I said, play with this, see what comes of it. See, make this your own. So we're going to be starting part 1, which is how to make the remedies and what people want to make in June, July, and August. And then we integrate that class if they want to be a part of this, the old timers, I call them, who have been with me for 2.5 years. Then they come into the class August, September, and October. And then the next round will be in January. I'd like to do it 3 months. We meet twice a month for 3 months, and then we take 3 months off, 2 or 3 months off, because you really need to be able to integrate this. You need to write up your provings. You need time. And all this work will be on the website. On Saturday, my tech is coming to load up article onto the website, because each person is really honored for the work they did. Their email address is on there. So if anybody wants to get in touch with them and order the remedies, they can. And if anybody wants to learn this and play in the realm of energy with us, please get in touch with me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I have a few questions for you. When you mentioned about the Imponderables not using it above 30C, so it's funny because whenever I prescribe X-ray or ultrasound or anything like that for clients, I always feel intuitive that I want to use even the higher potencies, because I don't know why. I just feel like they are made of energy. So I feel like I want to use the higher potencies because that's kind of more in the realm of, I don't know, emotional things. I don't really know why I intuitively feel to use the higher ones, but it's interesting what you said about the lower potencies. What do you feel around that?
When I have to antidote X-ray in a system, I start at 200. I met somebody from the anthroposophical world of Rudolf Steiner right in 1990. He was a banker for the Anthroposophical Bank in England. And I don't even know how I was introduced to him. And he knew a lot about imponderables. He was the one who taught me the word. I'd never heard that word before, at least in relation to a remedy. And he said, my advice to you is never go above a 30 because you don't know what you're going to open up. And I heard about some woman got in touch with me from Ireland who had been given a red 50M, and it put her into a tailspin and it made her crazy for years. She was off balance. She was irritable. She was in a rage. The only thing that cooled her off was swimming in the Irish Sea, which is cold. And I really don't think any of these remedies that I've made, the color remedies, the sound remedies, the stuff that the students have made, should ever go above a 30. 34X is on the Fibonacci scale. That's it. We do not know what we're playing with. And I will not put anybody into a tailspin in their life. Everybody needs every bit of energy and consciousness and grace that they can muster to walk forward these days. So I'm not looking to prove that my remedy is great. I know that at a 34X in the Fibonacci or a 30C, it works. And that's good enough for me. I'm very clear about it. I'm very, very clear about that. I met some women. I taught in Finland for a bit, and I met somebody who had made a 10M, I don't remember, a 10M orange. It's like, what for? What were you trying to open up there? What's the matter with a good old 30C? What's the matter with a 6X? Just gently give people a chance to come to their own awareness. That's what a remedy does. It opens us up. It opens us to the realm of possibility. I don't blast people open with these remedies. I use high potencies in classical homeopathic remedies, the polycrest remedies, because I do think that they go deep and they can turn around pathology. But I have followed that rule for 35 years of not going above a 30. And if somebody wants to do it, it's not going to be on my watch. Because I've seen a few aggravations that were, this girl was aggravating for years, not weeks or months. And I think she wanted to sue this homeopath who gave her that remedy. I don't know if she did or she didn't. I recused myself from the case. It was too volatile for me. But I've never forgotten that. It's not okay.
I do wonder though, because if it's energy medicine, how would using a 10 of syphilinum be different of using a 10 of a color remedy? Like that's just, so this is the part of homeopathy that sometimes I get annoyed with, because some people are just unbelievably sensitive to remedies. And then
Yes.
give something, and this is where the podcast has completely blown my mind, because I've interviewed 200 homeopaths now and everyone operates so differently. So I'm integrating all this information and trying to make sense of it all, and maybe that's where I'm doing like on a losing streak, because there's no way you can make sense of all of this, because sometimes somebody has a reaction like that and then we get fearful of using certain potencies because of that. Classic example I use is that I was taught 10 years ago, you give a bowel nosode once and you never repeat it within 3 months. And
I was taught the same thing. And now it's changed.
I prescribe bowel nosodes daily for like 2 months at a time, and people have great results.
Yes.
So I just wonder how it's energy medicine. So how is using a 10 of syphilinum different to using a 10 of a color remedy?
Let's talk about it, because this is a really good question. Syphilinum is the most destructive miasm we know. It doesn't get more destructive than syphilinum. It can eat out, I always say, it will remount the inner core of a cell.
The disease itself, or the miasm, or the syphilitic energy?
Yeah. Well, it's not the energy, it's the actual spirochete. The syphilitic spirochete will go into the cell and remount the core of the cell. That is ultimately as destructive as you can get. And the breakdown with syphilinum, with syphilis, genetic syphilis, is unbearable. I recently had a case of macular degeneration. The first thing she got was syphilinum 10M, and then carbon sulf, and then source medicine. And you know that she went to a board certified retinologist 3 weeks after she had started the protocol, and there was no sign of macular degeneration. She was terrified of going blind. Both of her parents had it, and she would have done anything. But source medicine 3 times a day, every day for 3 weeks. She would they have a resonance for macular degeneration. I said, how often did you do it? She said, well, she was a journalist. She said, I do it as long as I'm at my computer, I'll play it for hours. Like, really? I thought, great. But I saw that the syphilinum was the first thing she got before she got the remedy. A color remedy at a 30C, if you're lucky, will last maybe 48 hours in the system. It's like a good gentle breeze going through the body. It just sets the chakra right. I've done yoga for 52 years and I love the chakra system. So it just sets the chakra right. And then healing can happen. I say it opens a door so healing can happen. So that remedy you've given for tuberculosis of the pelvic bones, which is, eating away and creating terrible pain, take a little orange, set the chakra right, and let your remedy go in and be absorbed. Let that remedy find its way in rather than having to fight its way in. I think so many times our remedies are like, they're trying to fight their way into the core of the system, and it's blocked with X-ray. It's blocked with miasmatic junk. It's blocked with God knows the stuff people put into their bodies these days. I mean, really. I had a case this morning that was so complex that I said to this client, this is going to take 6 to 8 weeks of just detox before I can even give you the remedy you need. And you could see it, the look on his face. I said, there are no silver bullets. There are no quick fixes. You have done highly suppressive things with horrible medications. It's going to take Cipro, tetanus, X-ray, Flonase. I mean, just like it's going to take for 6 weeks if you get on it and do the work and start forgiving everybody who ever hurt you. It's like, come on. I would give a Syphilinum 50M, and I've got it. I've got it in my pharmacy. Some gal from your end of the world did a book on high potencies, very high super potencies. I can't remember
Jill
her name.
Turlin. She's been on my podcast.
Yes. And I read the book. Somebody recommended it. I wasn't quite on board with everything she said, but I did order the major remedies, an aconite 50M, an arnica 50M, an ignatia 50M, hypericum 50M.
Well,
yeah.
There are some mega potency Facebook groups now where people are using 10 mm's daily for 21, 30 days at a time, and then iodium CM every full moon. And these are like home prescribers using these remedies. So we're in a very, very interesting, interesting time at the moment, because we have such great access to information due to the internet. There's all these Facebook groups. More people are, we are in the homeopathic revolution right now. It's not like coming, it's here. We're in it right at this moment.
And some of these people are amazing. I have my Facebook feeds are all homeopaths. I finally got it where it's like 98% homeopaths. And these young people all over the world, what they're doing is like, wow, how exciting is that? I'm knocked out. I'm thrilled, because the fight to get anybody to even accept that a color could heal was like, it took 8 years. I wound up throwing it all in the bin because nobody was interested. It was part of my development as a person to have to face that. But they're not facing that anymore. They're out there doing extraordinary things. And my hat goes off to them. I have great admiration and respect for what the young are willing to do with our medicine. And we've had some wonderful teachers pass over in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Ian Townsend, Peter Chappell, Ernest Roberts,
Robin Murphy.
Misha Noland. Yeah. Robin Murphy. God bless him. He came to Tucson. I got to have lunch with him here. It was just a thrill to meet him. Yes, some really great. These were great teachers.
Yeah, very. There's probably a reason for that as well. Because none of them were particularly old. I feel they were all kind of like, some of them were more like early 70s, mid 70s. I feel like we should have gotten a few more years out of them.
Well, I think all up there.
80s. Exactly. But I feel maybe they felt they had more work to do up there guiding us from the spirit world.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
I feel that too. And there are times when I'm stuck. I call on James Tyler Kent. I call on Compton Burnett, and I call on Robin Murphy a lot.
Yeah.
Please help me with this. Please.
Yeah, Robin Murphy's a busy guy. I call on him too. I've watched so many of his lectures. Yeah, I use his repertory every day. I just feel like he's with me every day.
Me too. I use his repertory every single day, and I use it when I teach. I said to him, how long did this take you, Robin? He said, 10 years to do the repertoire. 10 years. Can you imagine devoting that amount of time to anything? He was just extraordinary. And it was shocking when he passed. And it was like, really? Some of them went with COVID. Ernest Roberts went with COVID. And Ian Townsend, who was my clinical supervisor, one of the dearest men I've known in homeopathy, he said to me, Ambika, why did you choose me to be your clinical supervisor? And I said, because you dot your I's and you cross your T's, and I need to learn to do that. He said to me, put your pendulum away, Ambika, and learn to think. I thought, what is he talking about? Because everything was perception. But okay. And I did. I learned to think. God bless him. He was a wonderful clinical tutor. He really was. Well missed. Oh, goodness.
I've just recently realized that I'm very skeptical. So one of the questions I have to ask you is, with intentional remedies, something that I have been wondering about is that, and this is, maybe we can go into like the energy devices that we have these days, like the Healy devices. And there's more and more of these types of things where you're like zapping somebody with an energy, right? And so with intentional remedies, even, it's the intention of the person who made the remedy. And when you're taking this remedy that somebody else made with intention, you don't really know what their intention was when they made it. So you have there's a little bit of trust that goes with that, right? So this is like the skeptical behind. It's always in the back of my head, which I'm grateful for, and I acknowledge it. And I thank it and then I put it to the side again. But it helps me to always question everything and to not just, I don't ever want to be sitting in complacency or just not questioning things, because I was there. I was the person who recommended that people go get vaccinated, and that, like, I couldn't believe that the government would ever do anything to, to a negative effect. Like I was so naive until somebody at 20 tried to sell me to a network marketing company, which she did. And I was part of for 16 years because she said, there's these things called sodium lauryl sulfate that causes cancer that's in your shampoo. And I'm like, the government would never allow that. So that was my first eye-opening experience. And it kind of went from there, right? So that voice is always there now, like fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So with the intention of the person behind it, what would you say to listeners who are maybe skeptical like me and wondering about what is it that you actually...
I don't hear that you're skeptical. I hear that you're frightened. That it's fearsome to think that that level of intrigue or greed or want of control would have precedence over well-being. I mean, it's shocking. When you start to wake up, I don't want to believe that people are evil and trying to control me. But what I do say to people, and I say this to my clients, is that COVID was just the tip of the iceberg. It's coming down the pike, and it will not stop coming until population is decreased to a certain extent. It's not going to stop. And the only thing you can do is stop worrying about it and build your immunity. Jung had this great expression. He talked about reality is steel against stone. Reality is steel against stone. And I say, build an immunity that is as strong as steel against stone. Learn to eat what is good for you. Learn to meditate. Believe in the spirit world to protect you and give you grace and mercy. Find a medicine that is compatible with your higher consciousness. And the only medicine I know is homeopathy. I love acupuncture and I love herbs. I love plants. I'm a gardener and I love growing my own remedies. But get strong and learn to think. I don't want to say skeptically. It's not being skeptical. It's being aware. It's just simply... Do you ever read David Hawkins, Dr. David Hawkins, Power versus Force, The Map of Consciousness? I highly recommend it. His work is stunning, and he also passed over. But his work and this way of equating human consciousness, calibrating human consciousness, it's brilliant. And you can calibrate, and he said, anything, anytime in the history of this planet can be calibrated with muscle testing. Calibrate it. Is this true? Because it's going to ring in your body. Your body, when something is true, your whole body says yes. It's like, yes, yes, yes. Is this not true? It can't hold. Your body will let you know that it is not true. So if you've got a question about something you read in the newspaper, who can read the newspaper anymore? It's just misinformation and prejudice, tremendous amount of prejudice. It's hard to know what is true. So you have to ask, you have to go inside and you have to listen to your wise guidance and calibrate. Is there truth in this? Is there not truth in this? Is this remedy going to hold? Is this remedy, when you get the good idea, this person needs this remedy. Oh, you're a sepia. I had a doctor once years and years ago when I first started homeopathy. I went in, he says, oh, I know what you are. You're a sepia. I said, I am. It was like, really? How do you know that? You haven't even asked me any questions. Oh no, I can tell you're a sepia. Took it once and that was it. In 35 years, I think I've used it maybe once when I got nauseous. It's not my remedy. You need to take a history to get a good remedy, but you can also, I have made mistakes in potence, not so often with the remedy, getting the remedy right. It's the potentization, thinking somebody is stronger than they are, and then they aggravate all over the place. I muscle test. Is this the right remedy? Or you can do it with the arm, because the body will not lie to you. That part of truth that lives in us all, that place that is free and beautiful and clear, will tell you. So get strong. That's what I say to my people. You don't want to malaise. You do not want to be a victim. You do not want to be irresponsible. It's time to grow up. Sometimes I get these young people who are like 28, 29 in their Saturn return, or they're starting to grow up, and they're very exciting to work with because they ask questions like, is that really true what the government said? Today I had to explain to a 65-year-old person that the COVID vaccine was not doing them any good. And the 7 boosters that they'd had were really not doing them any good. Okay. And it's a hard thing to explain to somebody who bought into one of my colleagues said, somebody who swallowed the poison. But I've antidoted a lot of COVID vaccines, and I've seen remarkable things happen as a result of doing it. And I don't hesitate. And I've said, if you want to work with me, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to antidote this vaccine because nothing else will work otherwise. And then there'll be that dose of cipolinum 10M. Not always, but if there's serious pathology, absolutely. And it's, if a color remedy is indicated, I will ask, does this person need a color remedy, a solfaggio, a archangel remedy, whatever? And sometimes it's just, no, they don't. This is what they need now. And I test. I'm very clear about that. I don't like making mistakes, and I really dislike an aggravation. Let me be clear. At my age, I don't like being awakened in the middle of the night saying, ouch, it hurts. Or I really like to give the best possible run that I can. I have found muscle testing works for me. So be as skeptical as you want to be, but ask that place of truth in you. Is this true? Does this hold true? Is this real? Or is this just, snake oil?
I really feel, especially, I've always said this with my kids. I think that because they're 12 and 9, I think the biggest challenge for them as adults is going to know what is true and what is not, especially with artificial intelligence, where you can mimic somebody's voice and you will not know what is true and what is not, because it's going to be so hard. It's already better hard. And better and better. And so you need to be really good. And the only thing that you can trust is your own intuition. So getting good with trusting you and muscle testing.
Read about muscle testing. I've really come to see the value of it, because when David Hawkins says you can tell the truth about anything that ever was, ever is, or ever will be through this method of, this guy is an MD, PhD psychologist. He is beyond he had the largest psychotherapy practice in the United States at one time, and then left and went to Sedona and, started his institute. And his books are brilliant. They are absolutely brilliant. David Hawkins, MD, PhD. I've read 5 of them, and they really knock me out, because he has found a way to calibrate human consciousness. And every word, every letter, every sentence, every paragraph, every page in his books has been calibrated. So when you're reading his books, you're getting the healing. Yeah, that's something. That's something. And you read it and you are better for reading it because it has been calibrated at a level of truth.
I will hop on Amazon right now. Add it to my other, the curse of the homeopathy.
Do it with your remedies. We do it in the class. Is this remedy holding? Is this the right remedy? Is this the right potency? Because in the beginning, none of us knew. Absolutely none of us knew. One day I live on a lake, and one day I was walking around the lake and I was thinking, what do I need to develop in my life? And I thought, I need more trust, because like you, I'm very skeptical, doubtful, skeptical. And I thought, okay. So I came back and I thought, I'm going to make a remedy out of trust. And I do it by holding the bottle of alcohol and meditating on trust. And then when it came time to do the class, and everybody had their remedies, I didn't have one. And I said, I think I'll do trust. And it turned out everybody really got something from it, including me. I had to trust that trust worked. We need to be strong. We need to trust our medicine. We need to be able to stand up and be proud of who we are and what we do, and also have an eye open to be very careful and very cautious about who we talk to and what we say. And I do know that. Because there is a force that does not want this knowledge out there, that does not want people to be empowered, does not want people to be healthy. And you can only trust that through the grace of spirit, we are able to prevail. And I do believe that. I'm coming, to the end of my run. I'll be 80 in a year, and I've really, really clear that I want to hand over as much as I can to the next generation. And that would be to be very clear, to not be afraid, but also to be realistic about what you're up against. And your government and my government and some of the other governments of the world you don't want to run up against them. Trust me, you don't. But you want to be able to reach the people who will be able to take the healing you have to offer. Like, Peter working with the autistic community. They can't get enough of what he has to offer. And God bless him for doing the work he's doing. And I feel, send me the people who want to learn this work. I do not want challenge. I don't want to be defending what I do to skeptical minds. Either you're on board or you're not. And I'll help you develop a remedy in the best way I know how. Yeah. I kind of reached that point and cut my practice down to 6 people. That's it. 6 people, no more. I need time to teach, time to write, and time to live out the rest of my life in a happy, joyful way. So I'm coming to the end of my run, and I hope that I can have a few more good years to hand over whatever it is I know, whatever it is I can teach about this beautiful medicine. And I am ever so grateful. It's given me the best ticket for aging I know.
Well, I was going to say, you just look incredible. Nobody would ever guess that you're heading to 80. It's unbelievable. So whatever you're doing is clearly working. But
I make base products out of homeopathic remedies. It's in my soup. It's in my salads. It's in my garden. I have a very vast pharmacy, and I clean it out every 6 months to make sure everything is, all the remedies are topped up. And I love this work. It has changed my life and given me purpose and meaning and health, real health. And if I can pass on something to somebody else, I feel that's at this time in my life what I really want to do.
So just before we wrap up, Ambika, can you please tell us about your books and your angel cards and your courses, just so that our listeners know how they can benefit from your beautiful work?
Thank you. Yes, I'd love to. Well, I've written 8 books on the chakras. I love the chakras, and I came to them through yoga. They are the receptacles for energy, and they are the hydraulics of energy moving through us. I call it the ladder of love. And after writing those 8 books on the chakras, it came to me that the angels, the realm of angels, work in the chakra system. The Archangel Michael works in the root chakra. The Archangel Metatron works in the sacral chakra. The Archangel Uriel in the solar plexus. The Archangel Raphael in the heart. The Archangel Gabriel, the Annunciator, in the throat chakra. And these are the realms of higher consciousness. The crown chakra is the Christ consciousness. And the third eye is what I call the Shekinah, which is known as the feminine face of God or the goddess. So I've had this relationship with angels for most of my life, and never shared that with anybody. It didn't like being laughed at, didn't like being ridiculed or being made fun of. But I had a literary agent in London who, after the first book on the chakras, came to me and she said, "Now you're going to do a book on angels." And I said, "What are you talking about? Like, how do you know?" Her father was a dean of Exeter Cathedral, and she was a very spiritual woman. And she said, "It's time." So she introduced me to book publishers who wanted to do a card deck called the Angel Oracle. And it sold over 2.5 million copies to date. It's in 14 languages. It's out there. I didn't do the art on it, but I had artistic control over what was being done. So basically, I wrote the book, and it's a very fine oracle as oracles go. And then I've done a chakra oracle. You can turn anything into an oracle. I did one called Nature's Healing Oracle, which was about using homeopathy and acupuncture and herbalism with different food things. That's fun. And but it hasn't gone out to publication. I have a homeopathic oracle, the homeopathy oracle, which I'd love to get published before I leave the planet. And a few years ago, something happened to me where the doors of my life just closed in on me, and all my work cleared. This is a strange story. All my work went away. My clients left. I wound up spending my savings, and I got down to very, very little money. And I mean, very little. And I thought, oh goodness, what am I going to do? Am I going to go to Africa and work on an AIDS project? Do I give my house to the bank? What am I going to do? And as I meditated on it, I thought, whatever I do, nothing is going to spoil my happiness. It was a big thing for me to say. Then I had to say, okay, what makes me happy? What makes me happy is I'm a trained artist and I never have time to paint. I thought, oh, wow, I can paint. I took a job walking dogs in the foothills of where I live. So I had some bread and butter money, and I had time from about 10 in the morning for the rest of the day. I had a huge garage. I had a library table that was about 12 feet long and 5 feet wide, and lots of paper and paint. And I started painting. But it's a way that I learned from the anthroposophical artists of throwing paint onto wet paper. So when the paint dried, I kept seeing all these angels. This is the Archangel Michael. And these are part of the first angels that I did.
Oh, that's beautiful. We'll have to, for those watching the video, or if you're listening on the audio, you'll have to, you might have to.
They're on my website. They're on my website. So all I did, I come in the next day and I see all these angels and I go, oh my goodness, look at all these angels. And I just took silver and gold pen and some oil pastels and filled things in. And that was it. And after about 150 of these paintings, somebody showed up and said, why don't we do an exhibition? Why don't we, this woman did sculptures of angels. She said, let's do an exhibit. And she picked the best gallery in this town, which has an international audience. We submitted photographs and they picked us. Goodness gracious. It was like, oh, really? I didn't enjoy, I've got a very strong calc carb streak in me and I don't like being observed. I do not like being observed. And I did not like the exhibit. We did it, sold paintings. It was great, but I didn't like it. And I thought, well, maybe these would make a good oracle deck. So I sent them off to my agent, and the same people who published the Angel Oracle published Angels of Light, and they're with my paintings. And that was just amazing to me that these went into a beautiful, beautiful oracle deck, and they're stunning. And I've got a few more oracles. I've got a few more things at that creative nature that I would like to get out before I go. But if anybody's interested I run a 1-year class called Awakening the Divine Feminine, which is thematically organized. It's what we meet once a month for a couple of hours. It's got a book list, wonderful books. It goes from introducing ourselves to really working into what our talents are, what our gifts are, and finding the way to express our divine femininity. Runs for 1 year. I've got another class on manifestation that meets twice a month for, I believe it's 3 months. I'm not quite sure. It's on the website. We've got the illumination remedies, which meet, as I said, we meet for 3 months, twice a month. And you don't have to be a homeopath to be in there, but you need to understand the homeopathic principles. That's for sure. And that's what I teach. And the rest of the time is working with clients and writing. I'm doing a book now, a compilation of a book on the chakras, all the stuff with the color remedies in the chakras and the affirmations for the chakras, just everything I've ever learned about the energy centers, because they are repositories of our destiny. And when you get them open, then destiny gets fulfilled. I know that sounds pretty big, but.
And I always ask our authors as well, Ambika, do you have a favorite place for people to purchase the books? Is it best to purchase through your website or on Amazon, or where's the place that will most you?
Well, Amazon, Kindle Direct. If you go to Kindle Direct Publishing and look at their list, a lot of my ebooks are on there. Book Baby is another wonderful publisher for self-published books. They have them. I don't sell books. I don't keep any books for sale. I have one book on homeopathic elixirs. I've got about 16 copies, and I've got about 20 copies of Healing Guilt, Martyrdom, and Shame. But that's it. Amazon, good bookstores.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And just for our listeners, your website is lifeenergymedicine.com. I love that domain name as well. It's beautiful. Is there any final message that you want to leave our listeners with before we wrap up?
Yes. keep an open mind. Keep an open mind to the realm of possibilities. Don't get stuck in dogma. I hate to think that homeopathy would become a fundamentalist medicine with fundamentalist thinking. And I know that there is a section of that, a thread of that runs through homeopathy worldwide. And frankly, I find it rather offensive. If you can accept homeopathy for what it is, why would you limit the realm of possibilities? Because it's a fabulous medicine. It can only do good, only do good. And in the right hands, it can do miracles. And I do know that. And you don't have to be bombastic about it. Just really trust the remedy. Trust the remedy to work. And that's something that I do say to my students. They want to do meditations and affirmations and all this stuff with their remedy. Just let the remedy work. Trust that the remedy itself will work. We don't have to do other things to prove that it's okay. There's a question I ask when I work with groups is, what do you have to do to prove you're worthy of what you say you want? And the answer is nothing. You don't have to do anything to prove you're worthy of what you say you want. We are worthy because we exist. And when you hold that awareness in your consciousness, life flows very easily and very beautifully. And it's just allowing that grace to come through, not getting caught in the projections of other people. And they are flying. Projections are flying like guided missiles. Find your core, know who you are, stand strong, trust yourself, trust your creator, trust your medicine, and stay in community. This is something I've really learned over COVID. Community is everything. And God bless you with your website. It's fantastic what you're doing. And thank you. Thank you for letting me have a forum for sharing my ideas.
It's such a pleasure. It's been such a gift to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much. And I just know there's so many listeners that are going to resonate and really enjoy what you have said today, because the types of emails I'm getting after guests have been on the show that they talk about these things outside of the box, the listeners are really resonating with that. And they're the podcasts that I get the most responses from. And I think today you're just going to be blowing people's minds open even more. And so I'm excited for our listeners that are just going to be loving this episode so much. And I hope they purchase your Oracle decks and your books and your things and really immerse themselves into all of this. And now that you've said about your new book that you're going to bring out, that's going to have all the pieces on it, everything all integrated, I think that's going to be beautiful to see how you've been able to draw all the pieces together as well. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Thank you. You be well and keep up your good work. You're very good at pulling the best out of me. And I'm sure you do that with everybody. You know, sometimes interviews can be so rigid and unbending and chilly. This has been fun. I've loved doing this.
Well, you've made it very easy, so that helps.
Thank you.
So
Be
much,
well. And we'll be in touch, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Be
Bye.
well, dear. Bye-bye.